Cool.
All right, everyone in Freddy Beach, thanks once again for joining us today. I'm very excited. Not as excited as Paul is, but I'm very excited because joining Phil and I is Paul Simmonds of Robert Simmonds, the main man, best dressed man in Fredericton. Thank you very much for joining us. Just before we get started, I'd like to tell the folks that he's also the Chamber of Commerce president for the Fredericton area, which is huge and is very big into giving back to the local business community and guiding younger entrepreneurs like Phil and I.
Big fan of Paul. Known Paul since we started Hotspot, actually. So when we started Hotspot, Paul came down to Startup Weekend, and he actually grilled me on my business because he is a merchant downtown. And I realized he was much smarter than me. We became good friends.
So one of the things is you'll be prepared, guys. At any time, Paul might my side this thing and flip the switch and start interviewing us. Be ready for that because that's the relationship here. What did it feel like that first time Paul grilled you? I'm going to throw it to you, Phil, before we throw it to Paul.
Very honest, right? Because I feel like you're a man in business for a long time, so you ask tougher questions because you want people to be successful, and they need to answer the tough questions to be successful.
Yeah. I felt like sweat was coming out of my forehead, but also like the side of my head the first time. And it's funny because just before this started, Paul started grilling us on why we had a podcast, and I had that very same feeling because there wasn't like, the clear cut, like this is why. So without further ado, do you mind telling the folks a little bit about your story?
My story. First of all, gentlemen, thank you for having me. And Phil, I think you got obviously lots of drive and intelligence, and grilling you is just a matter of putting perspective or giving different perspective, because entrepreneurs are a special breed of people, and they recognize support from other entrepreneurs. And Jeff, all the statements you said are very dangerous, so it's good coming from you. Obviously, your story is very important to our entrepreneurial community. So I think it's very important that we have a buoyant and cohesive entrepreneur community, because that's one of the, in particular, secret sauces of New Brunswick being an innovative center. And UNB in particular being the most entrepreneurial school in Canada, and I think that will help make our region different from the other regions and give us a leg up on taking our economic community forward. So.
Did you always want to be an entrepreneur, if you don't mind my asking?
I don't think you always want to be anything. I think it just kind of finds you, and entrepreneurs are very unique people, and I think they probably go through their part of their life without even knowing they're entrepreneurs. And I was very fortunate to go through the Wallace McCain Institute Entrepreneur Leaders Program, and they hone and build the skill set to give you the tools to give back to the entrepreneurial community and to make your business better within the greater Atlantic area region, and to grow the overall economic ecosphere of our region.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I will say, for folks who don't know, you take a lot of time to talk to young guys like us for no other reason other than to help us out.
Even being here.
Yeah. When did that start? Because it couldn't have been from day one, right? Like there must have been a time when you sort of realized like you could have a little bit of influence.
I don't see it as influence, Jeff. And first of all, it's
say it. It's a podcast.
Well,
it's not a mindcast. They don't know.
Mindcast. You're probably not as young as you think you are, so I think we're all in it.
Don't tell the viewing audience that, okay?
We're all in it together.
Yeah.
So age is just a number.
Oh, totally. I sort of meant young young in the process.
Well, I think we're all young in the process,
yeah,
because every day is a new day. You start at zero, and you reinvent yourself, in particular in the retail or entrepreneurial space. But I think the best thing you could do is to give back. And I mean, there's a number of different ways to give back, and obviously financially is one way, but intellectually or mentoring or supporting young entrepreneurs is like farming, and that's the most important thing that we can give to our community, is helping nourish the young minds and all minds of entrepreneurs and business people throughout our community. So yeah. I see it as a duty.
Good for you. Okay, you go.
Sure.
You go.
So I guess like my question is kind of around, and I don't have it really formulated yet, but why is supporting entrepreneurs so important? Like a lot of people say that, but I'm curious.
How do you feel when entrepreneurs support you?
Yeah, I feel like I'm capable to do more because, people that have done it are, assisting.
Yeah, it's that. I mean, Jeff, how many, it's...
You have a very hard days, and it's very encouraging when you talk to someone who's walked the path just a little bit further than you have.
You know what?
And it clarifies your thinking when someone challenges you on something that you were like, oh, I didn't even think about that wormhole, which looks pretty big right now. So you need it on both sides of the spectrum. It's never in the middle, though, in this world.
It's important. I think entrepreneurs bring reality, and I think perspective is very important when you're building a business, and you learn through failure and you learn through trying. But if there's any takeaway that I can put out there is do it. Just, do it and learn as you're doing it, and listen to your customers, listen to your team. But there's no better experience than trying and failing and trying and failing. And Einstein says, that's persistence is genius hidden. So, and truthfully, it's keep going. That's what you have to do. But, you can overthink things, but the most important thing is to learn by your mistakes.
So
I agree.
Talk to me a little bit. So, like, obviously, very driven. One thing that I've noticed, this is just me telling you what I've noticed, is you have a great group of people that you work with, and they've all been there a while. Can you talk to me a little bit about how you go about finding good people, educating them? Like people like Cassandra have really come along even since I've known her.
And you know what? That is a wonderful observation. Thank you for that. I'll pass that to our team because it's important, and it's all on them. They're an important factor. Your team is an important factor of your success. In our particular case, we worked with our people. They didn't come in with necessarily a skill set in terms of the industry. The skill set was based on their attitude, and in some cases we've grown with them through their attitude, because one of the things I'm proud of is our demographic of our team is millennial to boomer, and you know what, there's no skew necessarily in any demographic, so that shows the culture of a company should be varied, and that we learn from all the different demographics. And for instance, today with one of our we had a conversation on gender, and that Ontario is going to release now that there'll be a gender neutral on your birth certificate. So I think it's a matter of being open to the different changes in society and appreciating each person for what they can bring to the table, and trying to find them the right seat on the bus, for lack of a better acronym. But it's part of being a good team leader is getting the most out of your people, and in terms of what they feel good about. And that's one thing that we're proud about in our business, is that we try to get the most out of each, and they're happy, and they do stay a long time, and they're part of our success.
I think that's pretty impressive, like just because it's for the industry.
Well, it's any business is like that, though. Phil, your business, Jeff, your business. You know, you guys are both growing, and you understand that you need good people to grow, and you have to treat them with respect, and you have to learn to trust them. But you have to also be able to let go, and I've learned that, you know, through the Wallace McCain Institute, is that just because it's not done my way doesn't mean it's not done the right way.
Yeah. Sometimes there's more than one way, and everyone has a way that they gravitate towards. Can you tell us a little bit about I think people would be interested to know, when you took that plunge, what went into that decision-making process, and then how it sort of evolved. And it could be as short as long as you want, but I'm sure the folks would love to hear that.
Well, you know what, Jeff, just like you take the plunge, and quite frankly, you just do it. Mm-hmm. But I think for each individual, it's different, and the drivers are different.
Totally.
And there's the importance of keeping that fire in your belly burning, and every day you just get up, you dust yourself off, and you go forward, and you're going to have some wins, you're going to have some loses, but you just keep going. And so for me, it was, I guess I had achieved as much as I wanted or could have achieved in current environments in my retail career, and so I just decided to go out on my own, and I didn't necessarily think I was going to do retail. I just needed a change. Mm-hmm. And I ended up in the same space that I'd always been in, and with the support of my family, just grew from one person to whatever we've grown to today.
Nice.
But it's all with great customers, great teammates, and great community. And we're, you know, without our customers, we're nothing.
No.
Yeah. They're the most important factor of the whole equation.
Let me ask you a question too, because we talk with a lot of really early stage guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's actually a privilege to get some.
As opposed to old stage guys, Phil?
As opposed to successful
people with wisdom and silver hair.
Remember, tomorrow my day starts at 0.
Yeah.
So I'm only as good as my last day.
Yeah. And so, I don't think people appreciate that.
Good.
It is what it is. But that's the truth.
But my question is, so you keep mentioning the Wallace McCain, because I know from our conversations that kind of brought you to a different level. Could you just speak to that?
Yeah, I'd love to hear that.
I think I've always seen the value of learning, and previous to that, I would have been in an American peer group of retailers that met in different locales in the United States twice a year, and we would get together and share stories and share our problems and concerns and opportunities, and I found that very helpful. And then I joined a Canadian peer group, so I would say I'm a serial learner.
Good trade.
I'm certainly not the smartest guy in the room, but I'm smart enough to know that there's a lot smarter people, and I like to surround myself with them, because they're definitely an asset to your growth. And so the Canadian peer group, we meet again twice a year, and we go over the same sort of challenges, and the goal is to raise the tide on our business. And then I had the opportunity to apply for the Wallace McCain Institute, which is actually coming up on its 10th year this year, which is a fantastic organization for entrepreneurs in terms of sharing perspectives and giving entrepreneurs tools to take their businesses and to grow individually and their businesses, and to give back to the community, to entrepreneurs and businesses. So I think that is an excellent program that we're so fortunate to have in the Atlantic region, and that is supported by the Wallace McCain Institute and the the people that administer the programs, Nancy and Paul in particular, do a fantastic job and really know how to bring the best out in people. And that trait is the trait of a good leader, I believe, and those skill sets are passed along, and that's why I sit here talking to two great entrepreneurs like yourselves.
Yeah, hope to be.
Yeah, you're working on it.
You already are. Why do you say that?
Oh.
Hope to be? What do you mean by that?
I don't know. Let me ask you.
No,
Yeah.
you know. Of course you know.
I'll tell you what I think. Like,
Yeah.
the reason I agree with that is because, we've been at this a short period of time, and there's
And that
challenges.
what? Entrepreneur?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And there's definitely challenges that I know that we face, that I know that Jeff faces today, that seem bigger than us right now. And I just I always look at that like next hill to climb. Like, hopefully I can get that one.
So how do you climb a hill?
Well, one step at a time.
Yeah, that's it.
One step at a time.
Try not to look
you're
down at your
looking
feet
the
too
hill.
much.
No, you're looking at the hill, but really when you break
Yeah.
it down, it's one step at a time.
Totally.
90% of what you worry about doesn't even happen.
I know, it's so odd.
Well, no, but that's how we're wired. But that takes skill, and that's a learned skill to break it down like that. And you guys do that. I mean, the challenges that you face aren't any different than the challenges other businesses face.
Right.
I think that's why the entrepreneurial network works so cohesively together.
Yeah, they're all the same problems, just different sectors.
Different sectors.
100%.
I must say, I sometimes almost feel uncomfortable even calling myself an entrepreneur. I feel like you feel like there's some level you have to be at, you know, and I don't, and it's undefined because that obviously makes no sense. It's like, is it 10 employees? Is it this much in sales? Is it like what? I don't know if there's.
So let me ask you, what would you call yourself if you didn't call yourself an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's two I don't know, Jeff.
Yeah, I know. You know, this often happens when we get together, and the sweat just forces itself out, which is probably good for my pores. So thank you.
I hope it's good for you more than your pores.
Yeah, no, totally. That's the.
So what would you be? What would you call yourself?
I'm certainly a business owner because I own a business, right? I don't know. I think maybe like as a young fellow, for me, I can almost tell you when I was like, oh, that's what I want to be. An entrepreneur was when I was 16 years old, and I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I guess I don't know if I just not heard about it. You don't really learn about it in school, especially now. I think maybe you do a bit more, but that gives away my age. Just back then, you did not learn about that, and that wasn't something that I learned about at home. But I read this book, and for folks who haven't read Rich Dad Poor Dad, you can read it at 16, so it's not a difficult book to digest, right? He's got 4 quadrants, right? Quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I can't remember what they all are, but quadrant 1 would be like employee in the very cut and dry sense, right? And quadrant 4 would be an entrepreneur. And the way he writes it, like, you really want to be in quadrant 4. He very much idolizes and glamorizes quadrant 4. There's a lot of stuff he doesn't mention about quadrant 4 now that I know a little bit more about it.
So what do you find your biggest challenges?
For me, it's the thing that I find so challenging about entrepreneurship. It's all chicken and the egg all the time, in the sense that you're like, well, if we spent more money on X, we'd get more sales. But if we made more sales now, then we'd actually have the money to spend on X, right? Like that would be a good example, right? It's like, well, if I had a team of 10 and I had this guy, like this guy's on social media, this guy's on marketing, this guy's on this guy's on that, that'd be brilliant. How would I afford to pay them? Well, I need to sell more shirts, but I could sell more shirts if I had that team. Now, how would I train them? Like there'd be no way I could take on all 10 at a time. I'd be training 10 people in 10 very different functions, right? But at the same time, I got to sell those shirts, and right now that's me who personally does that, but it would be taking time away to train them, right? So you can picture each level, you can picture what it would look like, how it would run, and how it would take you to that next level, but you can't picture the individual steps to get there. But at the same time, you can, because you're doing it just very slowly. It just doesn't happen maybe as rapidly and as overnight as you want. You have to think, well, how do I get to 10? Well, I start with 1, and I start with them part-time, right? I'll train them, but I'll also train myself on how to train people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Right? And then, that's how I chip away at it. But I think that's the biggest challenge, is getting your mind wrapped around what comes first in a lot of those situations, right? And should I be being more aggressive with my money, which I don't have a ton of, or should I be being less aggressive and applying a bit more energy and time? That's what I find. Those are the things that keep me up at night, right? And it's easy to really doubt yourself in everything, right? Like if someone's like, man, you should be advertising on the radio like crazy, right? And you're like, well, I'm not going to do that because I can't afford it. But then you're like, am I a coward because I'm not taking the financial risk that would probably drum up the business? Or, that's maybe not the best example, but you know what I'm saying?
I 100% know.
Yeah, it's always like, am I not being aggressive? Like, if you're not doing the aggressive thing, you're a coward.
No.
But if you are doing it, you're stupid. Like that's the way you can berate yourself.
Okay, so you've just gone through this and you've played out all these scenarios in your mind, and you have no factual data to measure anything because you didn't.
The mind doesn't need it.
You didn't do anything.
Right.
So part of being a entrepreneur is being a risk taker.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of taking risk and measuring,
Yeah.
you don't know until you try it. So
True,
back
yeah.
to my comment, 90% of what you worry about doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Well, all the energy that you're worrying about isn't really going on. It's going on in the 6 inches between your ears, and you can't measure anything. And that's, one thing I think Phil learned as an entrepreneur is you got to do things, and then you got to reflect, and then you assess, and then you make it better, and then you go at it. And the other thing too is you can't, build anything, scalable unless you have a good team, right? And that's what takes you forward is your team, and that's important.
I like the saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Yeah.
So for me, my biggest thing is I have a real hard time letting go of control. Like I still read every sport email. Like everyone that comes in. Sorry. And the reason is...
No problem, Alex.
Alex has been here for 2 weeks. I don't think he's that offended by it.
Alex, you didn't know that yet, did you?
But that's definitely a problem for me. Is it taxes me. Like there's just things where you talked about trust with your team. That's something that I'm big on trying to figure out.
If it means anything, Phil, I was like you for probably about 15 years. It's a long journey, but you really, once you build the trust with your team, it's wonderfully liberating, and it's a twofold thing. It lets them grow, and it lets you grow. So back to your comment about quadrants, I mean, Covey has many books out, and one of them is quadrants. And where do you want to spend your time? High impact, high delivery, or low impact and time taking, right?
Yeah.
So you got to divide your time, effectively, because you are doing so many things. So, part of that comes with learning, and you can only grow as fast as you can go.
Right, exactly.
It's only 24 hours in everyone's day, right?
Totally. I have questions for you, just around like, I have like the fun questions. Like I like.
Do it.
What is something that maybe you do that's not quite intuitive that you would recommend people start doing to deal with, being an entrepreneur?
You know what? There's just
doesn't have to be right.
Just do stuff. Just if you have a passion and you want to test it or build it or do it. I mean, you got to remember when I grew up, we had no internet. Right?
Wild.
I mean, no, there was no cell phones, no.
You had to tinker. You couldn't just YouTube.
I'm just saying the opportunity is out there to beta, to test, to gather information. I mean, I had to remember stuff. Everyone now just Googles it. Right. And today I still have to remember stuff because I choose to, but all the tools are out there. So as an entrepreneur, or I mean, you can do anything you want. The world is limitless.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's, I mean, everyone has the same excuses as time. So it's how you utilize your time.
Anything you want to ask?
Yeah, I want to ask this because I know that you are sort of a consummate learner. Do you have any books that like a book that pops into your mind that like if someone was a young entrepreneur, it's okay.
There's so.
You don't have to pick your favorite. You don't have to pick your favorite.
Jeff, I can't even remember them all. To tell you the truth, but I mean, reading books is really, really great, and YouTube and everything is really great. Mm-hmm. But when it's all said and done,
it's not as good as rolling up those sleeves.
No, it's execution.
Yeah.
You can read, you can do everything, mm-hmm. but if you can't execute, it doesn't get done. Yeah. And you have to get stuff done. Yeah. So
could you define? I find that everyone always says the word execute, and we all know what that word means.
What's it mean to you?
It means being consistent, being regimented, and controlled. So you have a plan, you stick to it, you measure it, and that's it. That's what execution is to me. It might not be to you.
Yeah, I'd love to hear your definition of execution.
No, what's your definition of execution?
Oh, man, that's why I tried to give it to you. It is a tough question. It is a tough question, right? Oh, man, now I'm on the spot. It certainly has something to do with trying to figure out, like, in your niche, what you're good at. Like, how do you bring a product to market? And a lot of people talk, like, I would do this, I would do that. But the first step is just bringing a product to market, and then taking the feedback, good, bad, or ugly, and then testing or adjusting. That's what it was to me. So, for instance, when I first started, I got tons of emails telling me what an idiot I was and stuff like that. And I just, used them all and then made my product a bit better and my service a bit better. And I mean, it's tough, I think, because it's so simple. It is the difference between those who do and those who put, memes on Instagram about being inspired.
That's so valid.
Right?
To me, it's just like Nike says.
Yeah. And if you had to ask me what book, I'd recommend the Nike book.
No, but I mean, that's a great story. Covers are great.
Yeah.
There's and a huge list of books, and it's. I think there's no better experience than just living life. Mm-hmm. You know what? As entrepreneurs, you think of a million things, and what you do with those things is what defines you in terms of getting things done or actually getting things done, and how each individual goes about finding the discipline to get their list done or execute is personal. But it also makes the difference between doing and not doing and moving forward. If that makes any sense.
It makes tons of sense.
I think that's it. I think we're good.
Yeah, well, I'm going to throw one more thing to Paul, just to put him on the spot, and I have a feeling the question's going to come back.
Let's do it.
like Robert Blue, like they used to say in the schoolyard, but I'm going to ask anyway.
Boomerang.
Yeah, exactly. One last thing. Any final thoughts to anyone out there you're thinking about entrepreneurship, business ownership?
First of all, we have such a great structure for entrepreneurship. You got Planet Hatch, mm-hmm. You got entrepreneurs, you got UMB TME program, you got the Wallace McCain Institute. Even in schools, you got Junior Achievement, which is a fantastic vehicle for entrepreneurs and budding business people. So the support's out there. And the thing that I know is so important is entrepreneurs like helping entrepreneurs. There's no level, there's no hierarchy. They will help anybody. You guys both know that I've met with you both on different times, and the door's open, and that's the way it is. So I think it's important that everyone realizes you're not alone, whereas years ago or before the networks you thought you were alone. So it's important that you just get out there and do it and test it and measure it and make it better and do it again.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. So for me, I came from the military where you've always got your buddies and stuff and whatever, and you start doing this, and sometimes it feels lonely.
100%. What buddies?
Yeah, Okay, well, because you're in the mine by yourself sometimes, oftentimes. Yeah. On that note, unless you've got any thoughts, Phil.
Thanks, Paul.
Gentlemen, pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
No worries.
Good.
Freddy Beach.
That can go anywhere.